This is a combat mission shock force level called Border Crossing. It's the first mission in the British campaign. I recently purchased this expansion, and this is my first time playing the British. First time playing this level. My mission is to secure the road heading into Syria in the southeast of the country, and specifically to secure the checkpoints on the road itself, and to also check the nearby buildings adjacent to the road for intelligence. Starting off, they give me about half dozen scimitars, which are light tanks, reconnaissance tanks. They also give me 2 armored personnel carriers with just 2 sections of 4 men each. So I'm going to use this initial force to basically just secure the first checkpoint here at Phase Line Alpha. I don't have enough force to go further than that. I only have about 10 fighting men, 10 dismounts. Here I'm just looking at the buildings. There's 2 checkpoint houses along the road, and there's also a barracks here and other buildings that are probably going to house enemy infantry. The one downside to the scimitars is that they have a very limited high explosive ammunition storage. Almost all of their ammo is armor piercing, and unfortunately there's not going to be any armored opponents, enemy armored elements, you know, on this level. So it's basically a waste, and I have to rely on just accurate artillery fire missions and suppressive fire from lighter weapons in order to ensure that my soldiers are not outgunned. So right now I'm just approaching Phase Line Alpha, the initial checkpoint, in hunt mode. This way, if they have any enemy contact, they'll immediately stop. I can't really attack from the sides of the road because in the briefing I was informed that there would be minefields there. So everything I do is basically stuck to the road. Right now you can see I'm basically sighting in those guard houses. Once I get within 300 meters, that's when it's time to suppress those buildings. Why? Because RPGs are effective at about 300 meters. You can see that little explosion that was from an RPG, and it was about 300 meters away from the guard post. So I was, you know, it was wise. So right now I get within 300 meters and I tell my scimitars to fire HE rounds into those buildings. And I quickly move up the other elements, tell them to dismount and take the phase line. In this initial attack, I use up most of my AG ammo, and you can see right here I'm trying to tell the scimitars to cease firing. And that's mainly because I need that AG ammo for the rest of the level. Right now I'm just rushing up these little sections. There was a section of Syrian infantry in the guardhouse on the right, but they were neutralized mostly by the HE fire from the scimitars, and then a few of them tried to run out and retreat, and they were gunned down by my approaching infantry sections. So at this point, I was going to set up these guardhouses here basically as an overwatch position, but they're not an ideal overwatch, mainly because the other buildings in front of the guardhouses are further than 400 meters away, and most assault rifles are only effective at about 300 meters. Right now I'm just moving the scimitars up to sort of fan out in front of these guardhouses and get eyes on the buildings. I'm not too worried about enemy AT fire, mainly because they're far enough away where the fire will be really inaccurate. And the only way they'll be able to really hit me is if it's just a lucky shot. So I was taking sporadic RPG fire, but they didn't deal any damage. I also set up the heavy weapons team, the javelin team, on top of the guardhouse on the left. This way, when I do eventually attack buildings, I'll have them, quickly. I'll have them on station so they can fire their weapons into the buildings. Right here I took a little risk and I moved a little bit outside of the road so I could get a wider base of fire, get some eyes on the left and the right flanks. This is pretty risky because I didn't know the extent of the minefield or where the minefield started or ended. But I figured that they wouldn't put the mines directly in front of the trench line, because, you're still maneuvering there. That's still maneuver space for the enemy, so. So while I was doing that, the A Squadron's HQ platoon has arrived. And this still isn't really a force that is useful for assaulting the actual town. I don't know if you'd call it a town, but the group of buildings to the side of the checkpoint, because there's no full-size infantry sections. They're similar to what I have now. They're these little four-man sections that are not even large enough to properly assault anything, because they can't break up into two fire teams or more. So the enemy is shifting forces far to the north. They're shifting their forces across the street from the left flank. Probably getting in ambush position so they can open fire on me. I was really surprised by the fighting spirit of these Syrians, because in the first few levels of the American campaign, the Syrians that you encounter are basically extremely, they scare extremely easily. They have very low morale. These guys survived multiple artillery barrages that leveled the buildings they were in. Not only did they survive, but they managed to hang on and then ambush me when I actually moved in to attack. So I don't know if that was a lack of foresight on the scenario designer's part, or what, but there's only supposed to be, reserve troops here and irregulars, and their morale was better than an irregular or reservist. I bombarded the shit out of them with 155mm howitzers, and then, multiple suppression fires, and they were still able to ambush me and cause heavy casualties. I took every precaution, that I could within reason, and I still took pretty high casualties. So we're exchanging some fire with the Syrians that are in these buildings, but they're very elusive. That's another aspect of this mission, is that it's very difficult to suppress these buildings just due to the layout. There's no clear line of sight on the buildings in the rear, and accordingly, in order to really assault those positions, you have to just roll up in a mechanized wave and hope that you can suppress them before they take out your vehicles, which is what I do. So right now I'm just firing some javelins into the buildings where I was receiving fire from. And while I'm doing that, I'm also lining up the HQ squadron for an assault on the actual town itself. Again, the reason why they're in a line, the reason why they're in a column, is because there were reports of a minefield, and I know that if I were to attack in a broad formation, or if I were to just roll across the open desert, chances are I would lose at least a few vehicles. Ideally, here we go. We got a little suicide bomber coming up on the checkpoint. Luckily, I'm able to knock it out. Anyway, ideally, I wouldn't have attacked down the road, mainly because, obviously they're going to expect an attack down the road. And I don't like to attack a position where the enemy expects me to attack. Secondly, the line of sight on the buildings from the road is not advantageous in any way. When I approach, they have the opportunity to really inflict a lot of damage, mainly because I was forced to be in a very awkward position due to the threat of a minefield on either position. So right now I'm preparing for an assault. The scimitars are going to go in first. They're going to hopefully, take the RPG fire on. And then from the rear will be the armored personnel carriers and support elements. The big thump noises of the 30mm cannons of the scimitars. So unfortunately, there's a Syrian section on top of a roof of a building that I cannot hit. And it's an RPG team as well. So they're going to have the ability to just continually fire on my vehicles. And right now I don't have any artillery support. So, I just have to make do and just try to engage them to the best of my ability. So right now, we're approaching, we're taking fire from the outlying buildings. pretty accurate fire as well. Try to suppress that. So right here, I try to use one of the javelin teams to actually hit the building with the RPG team, but there's no line of sight, and I can't really imagine a position that would give me a line of sight other than these buildings on the left side. But then again, I'm also afraid again of the minefield being there. So what I basically do is just roll up on the tarmac in a mechanized wave and just dismount and attack. My initial movement is not a mechanized wave though. I was afraid that there were going to be Syrian AT teams in these buildings directly in front of my force, so I didn't want it to roll up towards those buildings. I wanted to first establish a base of fire in the buildings directly in front of me. So the plan is to establish a base of fire, then attack in a mechanized wave. So right now I'm just moving up, well, I'm actually preparing to move up as foot dismounts. We're just going to walk up into the town, use the buildings to suppress any fire that comes in. Use the vehicles to suppress any fire that comes in, establish a base of fire, and then go from there. But it was too dangerous at this point to just roll in there. And I also move up a few sections that were at the original base of fire because, you know, they can't really do anything from that range. This is a really challenging mission. I mean, it's not the most exciting mission. I much more enjoyed the opening mission for the American campaign, American Army campaign. I thought that was probably one of the most fun missions. Attacking this, this huge Syrian base that's completely surrounded by tanks and trenches. It was awesome. This mission is like weird. It's not an epic opening mission. Right after the smoke clears, I'm going to rush up to the buildings, begin my assault. Another downside to the British that I noticed is that their armored personnel carriers, they don't have a dedicated vehicle crew other than the driver. They rely on the dismounts to actually man the machine gun. What that means is that they're not useful as a means of suppression if they're, if you dismount from them. And on top of that, once the scimitars run out of HE, all they really have is their AP rounds. They go right through buildings. They don't even really... They very rarely are useful for suppressing or for inflicting casualties on infantry. So it basically leaves me with no suppression fires. I mean, I have a few of the APCs have gunners for whatever reason. I don't know. A few of them have dedicated gunners, but almost all of them do not have dedicated gunners. So you'll see when I'm playing, I'll select some of the APCs and then, nothing happens and I'm like, oh shit, this one does not have a gunner, so I have to, it's useless right now basically, and I can't use it to suppress whatever I'm trying to suppress. So we're just walking on up to the town here. Initially I was going to move up very slowly, just to minimize the amount of casualties that can be inflicted against me. And then I realized that I wasn't taking fire, like there was no one in the buildings directly in front of me. So I started to speed up a little bit. But if there was a large enemy presence in these buildings, then they would have just mowed me down. At least if we were moving slower, we could more quickly hit the deck and just take cover. So these aren't even full-size infantry sections. Still taking fire from that building over there. I can't do anything against that because I have no line of sight from where I am. And I didn't know what they were firing at, but apparently the APCs that the British use, they have like an open top where the gunner position is. So he was actually trying to kill the gunner that was firing upon, that was suppressing the buildings on the left. And that Syrian section that's on top of that roof, they actually succeed in killing the gunner from like 500 meters away. Right now I'm just lobbing some shells into the building in the center. Yeah, there we go. See, that the gunner just got whacked, fortunately. So, a engineer company has arrived now, which I thought was also pretty strange. I don't know why engineers would be attacking in the spearhead, but whatever. Even though they are engineers, they do have full-size sections, so I'll at least be able to use them to properly attack the buildings and assault them with multiple fire teams. So the artillery just became available, and now it is time to wipe out once and for all that incredibly troublesome Syrian section that was on top of the roof there. I set up a linear fire mission this way.
Hello, fire mission.
Over. In a line, and hopefully take out any other Syrian infantry that are in those buildings. And what is being made available to me for fire support are two self-propelled 155mm howitzers. So they should do real well. And it might just be me, but it seemed like the British artillery was more powerful than the American artillery. I was able to completely level the buildings that I was firing at down to the foundation, which I thought was pretty awesome. I mean, I've done that with American artillery, but usually after
fire mission over.
A sustained barrage that went on for like 10 minutes long. I just do a few fire missions, one or two, and I wipe out most of the buildings on this level. And this is a pretty good example of how to use artillery to your advantage when you don't have any other real effective means of suppression.
Hello,
Most of these scimitars are running low or out of ammo with
Shot
AG.
over.
Shot out.
Splash over.
Splash out.
So that spotting round for the first artillery barrage landed in the barracks, which is a nice little bonus.
Shot over.
Because it wasn't, you know, supposed to land there, but hey, it landed there and probably may have killed enemy soldiers that were positioned there.
Splash out.
Shot over.
Shot out.
Hello, fire mission out. Shot over. Over.
Shot out. Splash out.
Shot over. Over.
Shot out.
Splash out.
Basically, what those rounds are doing that are missing is they're basically spotting rounds.
over.
And
Shot
you're,
out.
Splash
the
over.
forward observer
Splash
is
out.
observing where they're landing, and then he's adjusting the fire via radio to fire commands.
Shot over.
Splash out.
Shot
If anyone was
out.
wondering, didn't know exactly what was going on.
Shot over.
Shot out.
Splash over.
And that's what those radio messages are as well.
Splash out.
Splash
And when they say
over.
fire for effect, it
Fire
means,
over.
you know, your spotting round is on target. Fire for the effect, which means fire the main package. Fire what I've requested to destroy the enemy. And it's going to land on target. So as the artillery is landing, I'm moving in the other sections from the HQ squadron. Sort of using the artillery as a creeping barrage.
Hello, ground complete. Enter mission out.
In other words, using the artillery as a shield and then advancing with that shield. So the rest of the mission is basically following this theme. I bombard an area and then move up on it, and every time I do so, somehow there's survivors and they're still ready to fight, which was not like the Syrians in the American campaign, that even if you fired upon them with just regular machine guns, they would instantly become suppressed and, you know, cower. You could just run in and just slaughter them. That was not the case in this particular mission. So I'm moving up the vehicles here as the artillery mission, the fire mission is finishing. Man, look at this. There's about 3 soldiers that were inside the building. The building collapsed on top of them, and they're still firing on my vehicles. Amazing.
Hello, round complete. End of mission. Out.
This mission
Hello,
would
fire
have
mission,
been really,
over.
really bloody if they did not grant the artillery that they did. If I only had mortars, or if I only had enough ammunition to call in 2 or 3 fire missions, this would have been an extremely difficult mission, because
Hello, fire mission. Out.
almost every one of these buildings is filled with infantry.
Shot over.
Shot out.
And as I said, it's half of my dismounts
over.
are small 4-man sections that are not really useful,
Flash. Out.
and
Hello, fire mission, over. Over.
Fire for effect. Out.
I don't really have the suppressive fires that I'm used to playing as the Americans, so it would have been probably, for every Syrian killed, it probably would have been one of my guys killed, which is, you know, appalling casualties for Blue Force versus Red 4. I think this mission would have been more interesting if they had some armored fighting vehicles. The enemy had some armored fighting vehicles. The scimitars can't even really be put to use. That's what they're designed to combat. They're designed to combat AFVs. They have, you know, a much larger supply of armor-piercing ammunition than they do of high-explosive ammunition. What I'm doing here is I'm suppressing the enemy so they can't run. And then, once artillery is available on station, I'm going to call it in and attack those buildings.
Shot over.
Shot out. Flash out.
Shot over.
Shot out.
Flash over.
Hello, round complete. End of mission. Out.
Shot over.
Shot out.
So as you can see here, a good deal of the barracks
Flash over.
is completely leveled.
Shot over.
Shot
Saving
out.
the fire with scattered Syrian elements here on the right flank. The checkpoint on the road is garrisoned.
Flash over.
Splash. Out.
Shot over.
Shot out.
Splash over.
Splash. Out.
Fire for effect. over.
Hello, fire mission, over.
Fire for effect, out.
Anyway, enjoy the rest of the video. I don't think that the rest really demands a commentary. I basically use the same method of just bombing out a building and then clearing it. Although I would like to add that I don't really take any casualties until the end. And then when I was clearing the last buildings, I don't know what was happening, but I think there was actually IEDs in the buildings themselves, and then they're being triggered or something, because the buildings were just exploding, and I was losing, you know, a ton of guys.
Shot over.
So far,
Shot
you know, we're about half an hour into the mission, and I haven't had any casualties at all, to my knowledge, other than the gunner of that ABC,
Over.
who survived, he was injured. And then, when we're clearing the last buildings, there are some casualties. I'm pretty sure that they're from, you know, IEDs. And so, you know, take special note of that when you're watching this, because I wasn't able to really determine what was going on when I was playing, but when I attacked the prefab buildings in front of the barracks, or back of the barracks rather, there's some explosions in the buildings, and I think that's what killed most of them.
Over.
Anyway, enjoy.
Flash out.
Fire for effect, over. Fire for effect, out. Round complete. End of mission out.
Hello, fire mission, over.
Fire mission out. Shot over.
Shot out.
Flash over.
Splash out.
Fire for effect. Over. Fire for effect. Out.
Hello, rounds complete. End of mission. Out.
Hello, fire mission. Over.
Hello, fire mission out. Shot over. Shot out. Splash over. Splash out. Fire for effect. Over.
Fire for effect. Out. Hello, rounds complete. End of mission. Out.
Hello, fire mission, over. Hello, fire mission, out. Shot, over.
Shot, out.
Splash, over.
Splash. Out.
Hello,
Fire
round
for effect,
complete.
over.
End of mission, out.
Fire for effect. Out.
Hello, fire mission, over.